for the sake of long-term peace in Manipur, it's important that you should look at something like the tripartite solution that they found in Singapore. And let me just take a minute out to tell you the solution that they have in Singapore. For example, they have television programs on government television channels that tell you, like, when a Malay has to go attend a Chinese wedding, what is the color of flowers you should carry? Because if you carry yellow flowers, it's for the funeral in Chinese culture. So you choose the whatever. So they actually have these mock situations where it's educative about ethnic and cultural heritage and traditions to keep people more together. And that's something that we in India, across the board, at a state level, at a national level, we've taken it for granted that, we're all Indians, we're just going to agree with each other, we're just going to sit and start talking to each other. Yes. But there is this need for cultural understanding and cultural education in the long term for peace, and also to start with get the three ethnic groups on the table, like we've been saying on this broadcast, Neha, both you and I, every single time we've spoken about this on News9, that there is all-party talks is the need of the hour in Manipur.
And that's exactly what Dada has been also talking about,
But
Brijesh.
then, you have to also understand one thing, Neha, which is the crucial differentiator I said. We have to have all parties sitting across the table. But where are the concrete actions to bridge the trust deficit?
The trust
that
deficit
is the most important thing, is because now what has happened is
I'm hoping that once you get that go past the trust deficit, when you have the all-party talks and you start finding solutions for the long term.
That initiative has to come from the centre now, Brijesh.
It doesn't have to come from centre, it has to come from state, and the state has to show seriousness. If you go to the chats, I know majority of the people can say one way or another. Usually the one who is in the majority always gets the blame, the lion's share of the blame, and the one who's a minority gets a lesser share of blame. But if you go by the overall, if you do a sample of the kind of conversation that is happening, they're not very, they don't trust the chief minister that much. I think, or the state administration. And I think therein lies the trick, because
which is why don't you think there is a strong case for the centre to come in, Brijesh, not just with the military, but with a proposal for a peace dialogue.
The point is that you have to also understand one thing, that when centre tells you a peace, it tells you from the prism of Delhi. The complexities is something which can be enunciated best by people who are dealing with it on a daily basis. People who are expert of the situation, people, scholars, people like Shobhita or Rami, and people who have been working on these areas. They have worked their whole life or half of their life, and who have no partisan interest at all. When you send a bureaucrat, he thinks like a bureaucrat, he behaves like a bureaucrat, and trust me, barring few brilliantly and lucky bureaucrats, majority of the time they've just ended up botching the situation rather than ameliorating it.
Since Brijesh and I have a slight disagreement here on the role of the centre, I don't disagree with what he's saying about how the central bureaucracy tends to deal with these sensitive matters, but there's a slight disagreement, and therefore I want to take this to Rami. Rami, my colleague Brijesh seems to think that it is the state government that needs to initiate the dialogue process, and I am not suggesting that shouldn't be the case, but fact of the matter is, going by all the reactions that have come in, there is a massive trust deficit. People are saying they've lost confidence entirely in the leadership of the chief minister, and given how sensitive this situation is, and these ethnic fault lines have gone,
a section of the people, not the entire state.
But then fact of the matter is that you need to bring everybody to the table, the cookies and the meat equally.
But when you see a 60%,
but if one party,
but a 60%,
my point is, Brijesh, if there are two parties to a conflict and one of them says, I do not have trust in the man who is going to initiate a dialogue process, then whether we like it or not, probably there needs to be a third or a fourth person.
But what about the remainder 60% who say that I have absolute trust in the guy who's handling the situation?
But what I'm saying is, at the very least, the centre will not be accused of this. At least they will not be.
The party is the centre party. The same parties are ruling the centre instead.
No, but this is about the ethnic identity of the chief minister himself, Brajesh. It goes beyond just the party.
You are going to get somebody else of the same.
It goes beyond just the party. I disagree with you there. So, Rami, I want you to come in here. How much of a role do you think the centre needs to play in bringing all these warring parties to the negotiating table, saying enough is enough, we have coexisted in harmony for the longest time, it is time to talk to each other once again and reconcile our differences. Brijesh seems to think it cannot be left to the centre. But I believe, given the situation that we have on our hands, the centre will need to be the initiator at the very least.
Neha, as much as I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that would be an interesting way to move forward, this problem is very, very deep. You have to understand, while we were talking about, these ethnic fault lines, how much do we know about it? People don't seem to appreciate, the kind of variety. We've taken the example of Singapore, we've taken the example of cultural, social inclusion and awareness. The fact of the matter is, let me tell you this, we have not changed our education system from the time of the British. To study any ethnicity, to study any state with tribal populations, to study any sort of identity politics, we still use subjects like anthropology and sociology. Anthropology was a colonial arm. The whole subject was created to study outsiders. We still study it like that. We still study our own populations through these frameworks. As a result, we have a very skewed perspective of our own populations. We don't know about them. We don't know about ethnicities. We don't know about their interactions. And unless that is fixed, I don't think really that we'll be able to understand or come to agreements, because this becomes a part of your psychological makeup. And in this country, we obviously think social sciences is not a science, and therefore everybody can comment on it, but that's not the case. It forms the way you think about your country, how you think about your population, especially populations like in our country that are completely are of, there are different varieties of them. Now, coming to the role of the center, I will have to agree with Brijesh that, the state government is the same as the central government, and of course, it doesn't matter who initiates it. The fact remains that this sort of some sort of a dialogue will have to be initiated. But what is the point of that initiation? Even if you make the three groups sit down, if they have no mutual respect, if there is a trust deficit, how are they going to come to any agreement? Now, the fact of the matter is that in the Maiti kingdom, historically, there have been Naga queens also. There has been a lot of intermingling between all of these tribes historically, but obviously somewhere this huge fault line has come in my opinion. Of course, it is the colonial fault line, but
Right.
we've let it stew for this long, where they've become so deep. Now with violence like this, it is very difficult. If tomorrow I come and burn your house and you come and burn my house, it will be very difficult for me to trust you. So even if they are brought on a platform, it has to be with the understanding, with the concerted understanding, like I said before, that this is absolutely a necessity,
Yes.
that we come to some amount of agreement.
I
Because
agree
at the end of
totally.
the day, who gets affected, who gets impacted? Earlier on we
Both
used to
sides
not.
are getting impacted. When you look at the casualty figures, when you look at the houses that have been burnt, when you look at the property that has been destroyed, all sides have been losers in this, and I think that is what the people of Manipur need to remind themselves of.